Welcome, everyone. This is once again your host, Shailesh, bringing you emotional well-being topic series that we started a couple of years ago. And we bring different topics on this, as you all have been familiar with lots of different speakers from all around the world. But today I'm going to talk about a topic which we have created is called creatives. And we are going back to those emotional well-being of those creatives who are in various fields, various aspects. And today I have the pleasure to once again invite to my beautiful, amazing human being, but he's one of the most producer, director of the spirit media that he has created. And what more than to learn from him and hear from him. Bill Doolan is the Emmy-nominated producer and director of Spirit Media, but he's also a US-based creative agency that he has attached to. But also he's the author of 7DRM, the 7 Disciplines of Relationship Marketing, and works on the advisory council for the Stanley Foundation that works to teach every young person to discover the hero inside them. And what more to talk to a creative person who is involved in so many creative activities and aspects of a multimedia industry that we call today. So welcome, Bill, for this amazing topic that you have. It's an honor to once again bring you back into the show. And I know we have crossed paths on different topics in the past, but messaging was also one of those things that we touched on in the today's world, that how people like to message and what not. But today's topic is creatives, and creatives is for all the listeners who are creatives, and we all humans are creatives, because I call it in my spiritual world is we are the creators of our own. And when we create, it is called creative because we are creative. That's why we create. So let's dwell into this topic of creatives, but more focusing on the mental health of the so-called or the emotional well-being, I consider, when it comes to these creatives who perform, who present, who create lots of things. So welcome, Bill, to this amazing topic that we have chosen. And I would like to talk to you more about this. Let's get dwell into it. Let's first see your first take on what is really creatives is. Let's understand.
Well, first, just the concept of creativity and who is a creative. I'm with you. I believe everybody has a spirit of creativity in them. I think it is a seed that has been gifted to us by the Creator that inside all of us has the capacity to do incredible things. Now, for some of us, we express it differently, and some of us water that and nurture that. And some of us have greater gifts than others. And as you pursue those, of course, obviously we see those, and sometimes those people actually get careers in those things. But it doesn't forsake the fact that I believe that everybody has a creative element, a seed, and it's just a beautiful part of the human experience. So when you say who's a creative, I would say all of us, but some of us have chosen to make it the centerpiece of our work and the gift that we can give to others.
So is it like on purpose we become creative, or is it like embedded, or like, we have got two aspects, consciously and subconsciously. How do you put that? That because these creatives are really doing something with their own utilization, realization of their own power, of their own skills, of their own talent, or is it some natural for every human being when it comes to create?
Well, I think it's like all gifts. We all have some natural gifting, and some of it is greater than others. For example, I remember when I went to school and I looked around, kind of a raw field of children, and you see some kids that have athletic gifts. Then you have some that have language gifts. Then you see some that have mathematical gifts. And then you have some that have artistic gifts. And of course, the same way that some also, they express it more in an introvert way, a very deep way, and so others with a very extroverted way. And so I think that nature is something that exists in all of us, and it's nothing that confines us, but hopefully can release us as we understand it and nourish it. In my case, I can say growing up, I was a creative kid, but I wasn't defined as a creative kid. it was unnatural for my family to look at me or anybody as creative. They were busy. My father was a meat cutter. My mother was a nurse. She was in the medical field. And so the idea of being a creative, I mean, what does that mean? It sounds kind of crazy. And of course, for most parents, they don't think so much as what's your destiny. They think, how are you going to make a living? So
Right.
being a
Certainly.
being a creative is not something that's often encouraged, even among creative families. But I think when you have that seed of creativity inside of you, and maybe a particular gifting, it's something that you discover along the way. And I think a lot of people suppress it because they don't know how to make a living doing it. It doesn't fit into the natural uh, line of career opportunities that most people perceive. And you always hear the term, at least I've heard it several times, that when you say artist, usually it's preceded by the word starving.
That's so true.
So with that kind of baggage attached to it, not a lot of people are rushing to be an artist, even though they have it in their heart. But for me, the breakthrough really happened for me when I got into high school,
Mm.
and I done odd jobs. I'd worked in a meatpacking plant. I'd done all these different things to earn money for college.
Yeah.
And I'd taken to a lot of different classes. I thought, oh, maybe I'm supposed to be a doctor. And I wasn't good at that. I remember wondering about business, and I didn't have strong math skills as a young kid. But when I was involved in anything related to the arts, particularly the language arts,
Mhm.
it just felt right. It was natural. And I had an opportunity to do a program for our high school. It was the last program of the year. And I was the news editor of the paper,
Mhm.
also a journalist, young
Mhm.
journalist. And they said, Bill, why don't you handle this? And I did that project where part of it was doing a retrospective on our 4 years of high school. And so we gathered up all the images that all the people had taken, from the athletic events and the thespian events and everything. And we put it all together over 4 years. And then I added music and I added all these elements and dissolves, and I told a storyline. And
Mm.
I'd never done anything quite like that. And I loved the process. I loved the process. I could have worked on it for weeks without sleeping. I was so excited about it, and my imagination just ran.
Mhm.
But while that was satisfying and it spoke to my heart, my life was forever changed the day we showed it.
Right.
And when I sat in the auditorium and the lights went out, there was about 1,000 kids, 1,500 kids. I can't remember exactly.
Mhm.
The lights went out. I didn't watch the screen. I looked at the eyes of the people.
Yes.
And you know how it is when you're in school and even in life. There's people that you have maybe a circle of close friends.
Mhm.
And then there's a circle of acquaintances. And then there's a sea of faces that you might recognize, but you have no idea who they are.
Right.
But you see them every day. But
Mhm.
in that moment, when that program played, I watched as a part came up at the beginning and it was intended to be thoughtful. And I
Mhm.
watched each one of them look and become thoughtful. And
Mhm.
then I had a part that was funny and they laughed about it. And then I got to the end and there was a piece that was really intended to capture really the spirit of our time together.
Yes.
And I watched as tears started to well up in people's eyes.
Mhm.
These are people I didn't even know. And as I'm watching the tears in their eyes, tears are running down my face.
Mhm.
And I couldn't understand it at the time, but in retrospect, I realized that in the arts and in media, we have this powerful privilege to impact
Mhm.
people in a deeply personal way. And and at that time it was hundreds,
Mhm.
but later I learned how to do it for millions. And when you realize that privilege, it makes you not only fall in love with the arts, but it makes you fall in love with the people to
Mhm.
whom you get to give this gift.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think that is a key element of the creative spirit that changed my life and continues to make me so excited about what I get to do.
So coming to that beautiful that you said, when you are a kid and when you know something, you like something, you want to make a difference or passion something, but you won't until you recognize or until you are identified, they won't understand what is creativity or what you want to do as a creative. It's a mindset challenge. And particularly parents might think, oh, creativity is nothing. It's not living. It's only enjoying or having your hobbies or passion, that kind of thing. So it's a mindset, but it's emotional well-being when you come at, and it starts from when you are a child, your emotional well-being. And that's where people don't understand what's going on in every person's mind. But as a creative, you are not identified. Until you are identified, you are just struggling with your own demons or own challenges. Tell me something about in your childhood when what you touched on was quite powerful, that saying, we are not recognized until we are creative, and creative is not considered as a living. So that things was a traditional, was an ongoing thing for our environment as a human. But how did you made those transitions in your mindset, that no matter whatever it is, I am going to pursue this, or I am going to make this my own? Or how did you navigate that journey as a
Well, that's
child?
a great question. I mentioned that, my mother worked in the medical industry and my father was a meat cutter. And from the time I was 14 years old, I worked at that meat packing plant, and summers after school.
Yeah.
And I got to see what it was like to develop skills of hard work, commitment, showing up on time, doing a great job, no matter whether you loved it or not. So there's character skills that come with that. But while I was doing that, I was going to school and I was writing and I was studying language and I was doing speech and I was doing these things like I just described.
Mhm.
And it was just so deep in my heart. It stirred in me. And it's interesting when you're faithful to just take those steps of faith of what could be the next thing? How do I pursue that? How do I understand that? I think we come to intersections where we ask the question, is this a hobby or a vocation?
Yeah, true, true.
Is this um, a, a passion? Or is this something that is related to my very purpose
Mm.
in my life? And I could not use those terms when I was young. I can now say now,
Yeah, correct.
my this is my purpose. This is my purpose to make a profound impact on millions of lives. I can say that now. But I was following the trail. And yes, had a lot of resistance because I was being directed to go other ways. But I said, let me start going to school, and then I would start studying. And so rather than spend a lot of money at a very expensive university, I was able to convince my parents to let me go to a junior college first and start exploring doing general studies. And it's as I did that,
Mm.
it validated in my head not only what I love to do, but where my gifts were. And it was validated through my professors. It was validated through my experiences. And it could have just possibly died, except for an opportunity that took place one evening. And a friend of mine was working at one of the television networks here.
Mhm.
And he said, hey, they said I could bring in guests. Would you like to come?
Mm.
And I said, well, yes, I'd love to come. I'd be thrilled. Now, when he told me that, I was thrilled and terrified. And
Yeah.
it was in that moment, almost as if you're going to meet the love of your life.
Right.
And that those nerves about, will
Mm.
she love me? Will I make a good impression? And you're nervous and excited, all those things. That's how I felt going to this television station. And I remember talking to my mom and I said, Mom, I have this opportunity to go here, and I want to make a good first impression. And what do you think I should do?
Mm-hmm.
And she gave me the best, worst advice you could ever give. She said, Billy, just be yourself. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, oh gosh, but what if myself isn't good enough? Which,
Mm-hmm.
by the way, is a very common trait among creatives,
Mm-hmm.
because a creative doesn't just manufacture something you can see and reproduce over and over again. Creative work is a gift of the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you can try to be as objective as you can, you realize that everything you do has a big stamp with your name and your face on it. That if someone doesn't like it, you realize, or at least you think, they're not rejecting the work, they're rejecting you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the most vulnerable places, I think, for any artist, is to know that they have to be so passionate and so committed that they're willing to put their reputation, they have to put their fears of being rejected just enough on the back shelf that they can tolerate making that courageous step to do something they believe they're supposed to do. And so I was trying to think of anything to try to make a good impression. Now here, it's funny. There's a cookie company called Famous Amos Cookies,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually they were made by a guy that used to be a casting agent in Hollywood, and
Right.
he would
Okay.
and he would show up to all the sets with his cookies, and I thought I can do that. I could do that. So what I did was I made a hot batch of chocolate chip cookies and pulled them out an hour before I went to the station, put them in a bag, and I went to the station. And I
Wow.
remember walking up to the door to meet that producer,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't just me visiting. There was actually two other people visiting.
Right.
One guy was, just so strong and so confident and everything. I couldn't relate to it. He immediately got up there and said, "Hey, how you doing? Great to meet you." Whatever. And I'm thinking, I
Mm-hmm.
can't be that guy. I can't be that guy. And then the next guy next to me, he was a technological, brilliant, genius. And he immediately started calling out the equipment. Says, I see you using the XY3000 switcher and the whatever like that. And I'm thinking, I can't be that guy. And the producer then looked at me, and all I could say is, "Hi, my name's Bill. Would you like a cookie?"
That's a very good challenge that we have, and as a creative I wanted to uncover this simple fact, whether when you are rejected, and that's the emotional, our well-being is tested,
Mhm,
because we get stressful, we get demotivated, we don't know what to do, we don't know whether we are good enough, we
mhm,
start self-doubting, and we have got so much reasons when somebody rejects you. And you made a good point. Rejection could be personally you are rejected, or you're rejecting your work, or rejecting what
mhm.
you have created.
Right,
And
right.
that's a dilemma that you have to also figure it out. Have they not liked me, or have they not liked my work? And some people don't want to express what they didn't like. They just say, you don't move on, basically. But in that moment of your mind, when something happens like that, and you must have seen now, growing up yourself, but also now looking at other people when they come in to talk to you and to interact with you and express their concerns about these rejections.
Mhm,
How do you think should really handle as a creative? When you are creative, you have got all the roads open, but all the roads closed as well. That's what I see it
mhm.
at some point. How would you deal with this kind of creative's mindset that you want to make this a very smooth transition, that even though you're rejected, you still have to make believe in yourself, or have to be strongly supportive of yourself rather than getting support from others?
I think
What?
it really takes a process. There's a process there. I mean, going back to the cookie piece,
Mm-hmm.
what ended up happening is when I walked out that night,
Mm,
the producer looked at me and they'd finished all my cookies. And he
mm,
said, "Hey, you coming back next week?"
mm-hmm.
I said, "Yeah." And I came back for six consecutive weeks
Uh-huh.
with a hot bag of chocolate chip cookies. And at
Mm,
the end of the 6 weeks, um, they asked me if I would be their intern.
mm-hmm.
And so I would show up every week at my internship with hot chocolate chip cookies.
Right.
And at the very end of my internship, the very last day, they hired me. I hadn't even graduated from university yet.
Right.
And and now I'm actually working in the job of my dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing I learned about that, one, is that guess what? And again, it took me a long time to get this.
Mm-hmm.
I was surrounded by two really brilliant guys,
Mm,
and they liked my cookies, but they liked the spirit that I brought to the table. I wasn't out to impress. I was there to serve and hopefully get my foot in the door into a dream position. And I think they recognized that, and then they saw, guess what, my work ethic,
mm,
and so uh, that taught me number one
mm,
that when you're yourself,
mm,
being yourself
mm,
and just becoming the best version of yourself, not trying to be anybody else.
mm,
Guess what? You might get rejected,
mm,
but you're going to get direction and land where you're supposed to be.
mm,
And just like those cookies, um, guess what? I think I make great cookies,
mm.
but not everybody likes my cookies.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the quality of the cookies.
Mm,
It just means that sometimes it's not their thing,
mm,
and I might not be their thing. So I'm going to take it another level.
mm.
When we get close to our creative product,
Yeah.
it sounds great to say, "Oh, here's the product and here's the artist."
Yes.
That product is like our baby.
Yeah.
And so we'd love to be able to say, "Oh, it's okay. He doesn't like the product." Guess what? You just rejected my baby. You just told me my baby's ugly.
Mm.
That hurts.
Yeah. So true. So true.
And especially when they say, "Oh, and it looks like you." Okay. So so
Yeah.
there's there really is a process where you're able to one recognize that
Mm.
not everybody thinks your baby's pretty,
Yeah.
but like the cookies, you know it's good. It just might not be right for them. And the more you get experience, and I say the courage to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, creatives have to have courage.
Yes.
And when you have courage and you show up, you'll
Yeah.
find those people that want what you have. And with the courage comes confidence.
Correct.
And that confidence helps to soften the edges
Mm-hmm.
of even that little echo in the back of your head that says, are you good enough? Are they going to like you? Are you going to get good reviews?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Go down the list.
Yeah.
But there is that process and it isn't overnight. But when you step through those doors
Mm.
faithfully,
Yeah.
confidence comes and the right audience will be there.
And this is something that I want to touch with when an emotional well-being, when we talk about our minds, they
Mhm.
all have got so many challenges every time there is always is running. And so to become resilient or to become confident, to start with confidence and then become resilient about that confidence that, yes, I am confident and I'm not going to change this, or I can change it, but I'm still confident and I'm
Mhm.
still going to pursue this. What would you say to these for creatives particularly, because for creatives, it is always like rejection is very common, natural,
Mhm.
because they say, oh, as you said, liking is the most important thing. Some may like, some may not liking, but you are creating something that you know that you are confident of it, that you know that you like it. So if you like it, then you can make others like it, right? That's sometimes one person says that, oh, if I like it, that means I want people to like it. But rather than liking it, how do I remain in that state of mind to keep continue producing, manufacturing, creating?
Mm-hmm.
That mindset, how do you bring that into this whole? As a human mind, we are so much challenged and so much different, and everybody's unique and everybody thinks differently. So that's a big challenge, right? um, in that process, what would you say to maintain that confidence and
Mm-hmm.
become resilient every single moment that you have?
Well, there's a couple things, and again, just to reveal a little bit about my story. My
Yeah.
growing, I was an only child, and I mentioned my father being a butcher, but for a significant portion of my young life, my father was sick,
Mm-hmm.
and he was in pain all the time,
Wow.
and he's passed away. My mother's passed away. Um, I feel I'm at a place that I can actually share that he was in so much pain that he was on on opioids all the time,
Right.
and he was abusive all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and he was physically and verbally abusive. And here's the good news, bad news. I mean, the bad news is no child should have to be subjected to abuse, but
Yeah.
a lot of us are in some way or another. But
Right.
here's the good news. I would hide in my bedroom
Mm-hmm.
because I did not want to have to face him. And I had a television.
Mm.
And my television, as an only child, was my companion, but it was also my teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the television that taught me about storytelling, taught me about the visual arts, taught me about the acoustic arts, taught me about creating episodic experiences. And so growing up, I think all of us, and it doesn't matter what level it is,
Yeah.
we have echoes of lies bouncing through our head telling you you're inadequate, you're not good enough, you've disappointed me. You could go down the list. Think of how many lies there could be to rip you down.
Mm.
Now, how do we break free from that?
Mm.
The first thing to break free from that is to quit repeating the lies ourselves. Because by the time we become young adults or adults,
Mm-hmm.
those voices start to fade in the past. And the only way we can hear them again is when we repeat them in our own voice.
Mm.
So the echoes of those voices now go from our abuser
Right.
to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that even broadens out to a media world. For example, we get 5,000 brand messages a day,
Mm.
every day through media and social media, and you name it.
True.
Driving down the street, you see. And ultimately, because they're trying to sell you something, every single one is secretly telling you that you are inadequate
Mm. Mm.
unless you buy this product, or you wear these clothes, or you live in this house, or you drive this car, whatever it is.
Sure.
And so the echoes of those things continue to wear on you.
Mm.
And the being cognizant of the messages of the past, the echoes in your own head, and the social pressures, wherever they come from, are literally forces that are lying to you. When you become cognizant of that,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to be whipped around by it. You can lean into it. When there's a windstorm, you see people going, whoa, and they're blowing back. And then you see people leaning in. And your posture will help position you not only to weather the storm, but to move forward. And the thing that will ultimately cause you to move forward is not just that posture, but the passion you have as an artist. Because no matter how hard it is, no matter how much rejection, you can't stop an artist from finding a vehicle of expression.
Mm.
It's in them. It pours out of them. It grows like their hair, like their nails, like their skin, like their cells. Every piece of them has a piece that is constantly trying to emerge and reemerge.
Mm.
And even at times when I did face rejection as an artist, face rejection in my character, nothing could stop me from leaning into the headwinds of my own voices, my own demons, and maybe how hard it was going to be for a season, because you've got to do it. It's like breath. You've got to do it. And I think that is the ultimate breakthrough. It's really the test of someone who's called to be an artist for life, a creative. And again, there's thousands of ways to be creative. You also find out along the way, it's not just the process of being creative, but it's those crafts that do it. There's some, like I remember dear friends, they're gifted at sketching art, hand sketching art. Gorgeous work. I could never do that. That didn't mean I'm not an artist, but in my youth, I would go, oh, I'm not an artist because I can't do that. And then I would see people that were thespians. They could act, and they were just brilliant actors. I'm not so good at that, So maybe I'm not an artist, but I found my craft. And when you find that craft, the passion to grow as an artist is usually attached to the craft, and that's where you move from novice, which is hard, to this awkward phase of growth to a level of mastery.
Yes.
And what a sweet spot to be when you could look in the mirror and recognize that, you know what? I'm not perfect. And guess what? Not everybody likes my cookies, but I'm a master of my craft.
Yeah. But that's a level of confidence that every human, every creative should completely have as a confidence, but also to continue that mindset, because you get easily, you're so vulnerable, your mind is so vulnerable. I personally feel that you can, within the spur of the moment, you can change to this way or that way. So in terms of creatives, like you have been into various aspects of creatives. So creating is something that you love, and we do, as we all humans like to create something or the other, and we do keep creating. Is it like, are you looking for that affirmation, confirmation when you are in the process of creating? Does the creatives has got the ultimate, like, I want to be recognized, or I want to be identified, or I want something, expectations is there? What's in your mind when you are going through different creations and different creatives processes? Did you had that end goal in mind before even starting that process, or you just played along and then looked at the results later? What sort of mindset you had in that process?
Really, part of it was I just love the process. I love the process, and I love the medium. And of course, I chose a part of the career where I'm in the background. I'm an artist, I'm a television director. I sit in a dark cave, calling the shots, and actually being a part of making the magic happen and getting virtually no credit for it. Right. And I loved it. I loved it. I will even say that if someone goes into the arts because they need to be validated and they want to be famous, they want to be a celebrity, their passion might not be creativity. It could be that their passion is to be healed from the hurts of feeling rejected. And they're hoping to find a way that they could be important. It's the reason, heck, when I was little, and I saw my mom in the medical field, I said, I think I want to be a doctor. I thought, oh, why do I want to be a doctor? One, I like to help people. Number two, I'd like to make a good living. I'd like to be respected. I'd like to be revered. And people in white jackets are pretty darn important. So I remember thinking that I want to be a doctor. No, I didn't want to be a doctor. I wanted to help people. I wanted to do something valuable with my life. I want all those different things. That's what I wanted, but I didn't know. So in many cases, people that get in the creative industry actually have false passions.
Yeah, right.
They have a passion for validation. They have a passion for healing. They have a passion for importance. They have a passion for power. They believe that if they make more money, somehow they'll have a better life. They'll be happier. Just go down the list. The world's telling you, if you want to be happy, do this. And we pursue it. And of course, heck, we're in media. We surround the world with all these images of how wonderful celebrities' lives are and creatives are and musicians. I mean, we all want to be Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
But we really don't all want to be Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
We want to be loved.
Yeah.
And there's a point where, and this is where I think that people fall off the wagon, because they'll pursue a creative and realize that, number one, they might not have the gifting to pursue that avenue. But number two, it's hard work.
True.
It requires stamina and commitment and real passion for the craft, not for the outcome of the craft. And so when you press and you press and you press and you press and you face the rejection and you go through the trials and you go through the issues that take you on that journey, people will fall by the wayside. And it's because, guess what? You didn't really want to be a creative. Let's find out where you should be. Let's find that place that's perfect for you and not pretend that you're going to be the next Taylor Swift.
Yeah, and this is where I wanted to ask this. You have seen creatives. So one aspect of creatives is you create some product, you create some service, you create something that will help people. Like, for instance, I'll give two major instances that comes to my mind is when Bill Gates started the process of creating something. He didn't probably knew what is the outcome or how much he's going to make money at that point, but he knew that that is something going to help people. Same thing with Steve Jobs when he created the product that he wanted to. Same thing, Facebook, and you name it, all today's giants, we call them, because they are now corporates and they are making money. But they are all, what we are seeing and what I'm seeing is they have created something for mass people, not just few people. It's mass people. So when it comes to that, it becomes very for goals. Like people think that, oh, I can create this and I can make money. So their outcome is already there before even they have created. They know what they want to create. Now, after looking at these things, these people, lots of people are followers in that regard. They are creatives, even when you want to copy or when you want to imitate or when it's creative work, basically. And same thing when you are looking for money. Money is also like creative. How do I create money? Through this process, that process. What would you say to those, people who wants to create a good product, but then there is an outcome to it attached to it when they are creating? Is it that the right way? Or is it the right mindset? Or is it the way these people, giants who created without probably a mindset, or they may had a mindset of creating money, but they probably didn't realize what is the money that is involved in it or how much they're going to earn out of it. Now they know, and now we can say them, they are corporate, they are identified. So they are identified creators now, or creatives. What do you say to the current people who are in this creative field? That is it important to have that end goal in mind of creating money or finance attached to it? Or is it the end goal should be like, satisfy your hunger that you want to create, but also maintain that sanctity of what you are creating, rather than having attached to the outcome? What would you say?
No, it's a great question, and I think there is a hierarchy that really does make sense that very few people honor, because it's really hard. Well, I mean, many of us start out with, and you mentioned my book, The 7 Disciplines of Relationship Marketing.
That's right.
Yeah, one of the first things that I really teach as one of the most powerful disciplines of the greatest creators of movements in the history of mankind is what I call the Mission Manifesto. The Mission Manifesto consists of purpose, followed by what missions must I do to fulfill that purpose? And then what are the goals that align with that mission? And what are the values through which I will filter all my decisions and processes? And what's my vision? What will it look like at the end when we have completed and fulfilled this purpose? I mean, that's a beautiful process that is really hard. And most people, especially when they're young, as I mentioned, even when I was in high school,
Yeah.
and tears are running down my face. Guess what? Tears are running down my face, and I'm having a profound emotional, intellectual, spiritual experience that changed my life. But I couldn't identify it and say, well, guess what? I just found my purpose, or I just found this, And it wasn't in that moment that as I looked at, the hundreds of people in that auditorium, that one day I would be doing shows for millions of people. It was, I didn't go, whoa, blow that up. But it was a natural migration that unfolded to me. Now, if I had to say what would be perfect would be to go through that mission manifesto that every human being, every creative, would take that season of deep reflection, and even through the hall of mirrors that have often distorted our view of ourself, of voices that have told us, you're this, you're this, you're this, somehow to take a moment of clarity and recognize, why am I here? Why have I been given the gift of life this day? And that's a big question. Of course, my story, I actually died. And so I come out of that saying, yes, I know what it's like to have died and come back. And I know what it's like to take every day with such a sense of both joy and reverence. But if you haven't had that experience, we think, heck, tomorrow's coming, right? Yeah, we'll figure it out tomorrow, or we'll figure it out the next day, not knowing we'll have that next day. So if you can be in that point of reflective and be able to get a sense of why, which is the toughest question.
Yeah.
And there you start to say, what are the missions in my life? What must I do to see the fulfillment of that? Now, from there, it goes to goals. Goals should never be just random out here, like, gee, I want to be rich, or I want to have a dog, or whatever. They really should be aligned to missions. And that's where goals come in, because they're a point of accountability, not just a random dopamine hit. And that's one of the troubles with most goals, is that we spend a lot of our life chasing goals, and we go to motivational speakers, because motivational speakers will help us achieve goals that will keep us on the rat race of perceived accomplishment, and we've never lived our purpose. But we just have a bunch of people applauding for a shallow success that didn't align with what we were called to do. We look good, we smell good, our bank account might look good, and that's one of the reasons we're filled with an entire world of extremely miserable, successful people.
Absolutely. No, this is very well said. I think we will have to come back to that one of your life journey. I just recently did one topic, and I would love to bring you on that topic, which is called life, and how do you define? And everybody defines life in a different way. But most importantly, how do you define life? How do you create and live the moments of your life? And everybody does differently. But when you have experience, as you have tremendous inner experience, inner voice, or going back to death, having experience, and then coming back, for you to talk about life would be a great topic. Well, I would love to bring you in that. But today, when you look at the creations that we are doing, creatives, creation. So life is also, whether it is a creation, whether it is what, how do you define this as a creatives? Is it our journey, our purpose is a creation, or is allowed to be created? It is just given to you, but to create something out of it. How do you make those? What's your analysis on the life that we have got and the purpose that we have got? Is it the creatives, that we are the creator of our own? We always say that the God is the creator, or we blame someone that he is the creator, or we say that because of him and because of that power. So there is a creation, or there is someone up on the top somewhere, right? Creation.
Right.
But we as a human, we are creators. So, what's your view on that for all the humans who are listening and all the creatives who are listening, that they are the own architect of their own journey, which is what they create?
I like I like how you distinguish between humans and creatives because
Yeah.
they're like two different groups. So keep in mind that we're delving somewhat into the philosophical and spiritual, and
Yeah.
and I can really share with you my spiritual journey as it took place after my death.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I would define it. I do believe there's a creator, and
Mm-hmm.
I believe that creator has made us with the seed of creativity within us. I believe one of the gifts that the creator gives us is self-will. So if we look around our world and we go, what did the creator do? The creator created a context for you to do something beautiful.
Mm.
And now it's in your hands. I've given you the gift of the context of a gorgeous world with incredible opportunities. And I've created a landscape and a masterpiece to inspire you. Now, I've also given you the seed of creativity to do magic, to do the beautiful, to do the miraculous. It is now in your hands to do with what I've given you and to do something incredible. So that also applies to our life. So when I look at our life, it's as if we're writing a gorgeous book and we co-write the chapters of that book with the divine every single day. Every single day is us participating and writing the chapter of not only our life, but how our life will be used to be a masterpiece as a gift to humanity. So it's a cooperative work, and it's a beautiful work, and it's not a limiting work, but it's an incredibly responsible work.
Yeah, yeah. So this is the one of the fascinating thing I wanted to ask you about, like when you say creation. So, and when you want acknowledgement or when you want confirmation from someone somewhere that your work or that what you have created is perfect or imperfect, whatever, but there is a response to it. Does the what stage a creation really makes a complete kind of a identity material when it comes to so when you have thoughts that comes to you, then you start creating those thoughts or put those thoughts into implementation,
Mm-hmm.
and then those implementation, then you want to maintain those implementation and carry on so that your creativity is completely recognized ongoingly.
Mm-hmm.
um, what's your take on that? That when does a creative understands that he has created and he has completed in certain way? We don't complete anything in life, but that creation gets to a stage where it comes to an end, and then he expects an acknowledgement. He expects an something.
Yeah, it's actually a tough question, and I need to say a disclaimer here.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how long you've been creating.
Yes. That's.
Someone, if someone doesn't like your work or rejects your work, it still hurts. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can always say, "I know my work is good," and da da da. Look, if someone says, "I don't like it," it's like, "Oh, really?" You
Mm.
know, that still is a part because yes, it is your baby. And you
Yeah.
can say, I know my baby's beautiful, but if someone says my baby's ugly, it hurts my heart.
Yeah.
And so you go into the process of creating. And in my case, of course, we have really three products here at Spirit Media.
Mhm.
We produce videos and television shows. So that's
Yeah.
one thing.
Mhm.
We also produce live and virtual events. That's
Yeah.
another thing. One of the things that we have learned, just like baking the cookies, there's a recipe for success that starts with the concept of what do you want to make? What are you
Mm.
called to make? Now, in our case, I don't just create for fun. I
Mm.
do have a lot of fun creating, but
Mm.
I'm actually paid and compensated to partner with others and to create things on their behalf. So
Mm.
if it's TV shows, videos, all those different things, we have a lot of great companies work with us and say, would you create this for us? Make this video for us. Maybe it's a history video, or it's a marketing video, it's a story video, or it's a demonstration, whatever it is. We do all those. And once we decide what we're called to create, then we say, what's the recipe? And we have a recipe for what we do that starts off with really strategy. So in our case, one of the things we've learned, and it's the way we stay in business actually, is we don't just make things that are beautiful and fun and cool. We actually make things that work and help people accomplish their goals. And so it needs to be strategic. So every process has to have a strategic purpose. Why? And it's the 7 disciplines, by the way. It's the same thing. Why are we doing this? What are the missions we need to accomplish? What are the goals we need to fulfill? What's our vision of what this looks like when it's done? And what are the values that need to be filtered through this entire process? So we have that process. And then from there, we move into what are the ingredients we need to do it? And if it's involved in the visual arts, it's what are the visual elements? What are the interviews? What are the field shoots? What are the soundscapes and everything like that? So we start accumulating those ingredients, and then we know there's a script portion of this that starts with an outline, and then goes to a script, and then from a script it goes to then an edit process, and then approve. We just only yesterday, and the reason I'm kind of in here in the office is that we just finished a 7-part campaign for a company, a marketing company. And I made the promise I was going to have it done by December 1st. I wanted to beat that deadline. And so I came in, and guess what? We showed him the product. He said, he used the exact terms. You've hit the bullseye. This is so good, but could you change one shot?
Yeah, right.
That was one of those where I recognized that the client is like the other parent of this baby. So I could look at the other parent and go, well, that's my baby. No, it's your baby too. So let's make this together. So that creative process is very similar, again, going back to 7 disciplines. Why are we here? But the fulfillment of that particular project is what we call mission accomplished.
Right.
And the mission accomplished means it meets the strategic needs, it meets the creative needs. One of the missions is not to be perfect.
Sure. Yes.
Otherwise, it would never get done.
Yes. So perfectly said. Yeah.
But we go into it recognizing that what we do is powerful. It's effective, it's beautiful, and it might not be perfect. And the other thing about art, it's subjective. Because everybody is exposed to art and everybody has an opinion.
Sure. Yeah.
So you go into it recognizing that I have an audience that it needs to hit the bullseye. And it's at that point that I go, I can take that breath and say, mission accomplished. Next. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Same thing if I'm doing live shows, if I'm working with musical artists, it's the same thing. And it's that willingness to continue to get in the kitchen, keep creating, use your best recipes, refine, and work every day to become a better master of your craft.
Yes, no, I totally agree with that. And I think this is where, when people look for initially, rather than pursuing or creating, they look for once created something, they want the result or they want the answer to that creation. That's the challenge. So I wanted to ask this question to you, being how important it is to or what stage you think that all creatives should be aiming for or not aiming for. So when you were nominated for Emmy, and it's one of the prestigious nominations that you get, is it that important at the stage where you are creating, where you are in that process of creating, that is it so important to do this kind of, but you didn't expect and you just got it? Or what sort of mindset creatives should have when they are creating or when they are in that process of creating? What would you say to those people who are listening currently, who are in the creative field of video or audio or audio engineers, videos, or all of that? Their work, their recognition is their own, as you said, like you get into kitchen, keep doing, keep creating, because that's your baby, and you love your baby when you nurture your baby.
Mhm.
And ultimately the baby grows or not is what up to you, how you make that baby grow, right?
Mhm.
What's your message to the people who are listening in terms of the recognition or the awards or the certifications or the acknowledgement? How important it is when you have a human journey like this, which is
Mhm.
so uncertain, unpredictable?
Well, it is. Well, you continue with the analogy of going in the kitchen. Uh, Going in the kitchen is part of preparing something and
Right.
becoming a master of your craft. But going in the kitchen is meaningless unless you come out and you serve what you've been working on.
Yeah.
And that's really where the focus has to be. As artists, what we do is incredibly fulfilling. It brings such joy, and it brings healing, and it brings so much because art, in all its ways, is a deeper reflection of the spirit and the heart. Not just the head. We're not a data point. We are a heart point. And so, when you think about being in that kitchen, you think about not the awards. You think about the person you're about to serve that to. And that's why it's important to know your audience as an artist. Um, in the purest sense, if I'm sitting alone in my room with a guitar and I'm writing, to God or to my soul, there's a beautiful part of expression there that is healing. But where it becomes powerful is when I write that song for somebody else, when I make that piece for someone else. And when I look in the eye of the audience, like heck, like I said, a couple days ago, I'm with a client, and the client, I'm on the Zoom meeting. They're in Los Angeles, and I'm here in my office, and I had my whole team on because each one had played a role in this piece, and we said, "What you did, there's no one that does it better than you. Uh, you hit the bullseye." That's who I did it for. I did it for that client because the client knows where it's going to go. And when he said it, it was like music to my ears. It spoke to my soul. Now, we still get awards. I can tell you the Emmy nominations and all that stuff really don't mean that much to me anymore because that was years ago when I did more television stuff. Now we have these industrial awards and things like that. And we still get those types of things. But even those awards, I don't do them for me. I do it for my team and my client. So when we get, like, for example, we get these Telly Awards. They're basically like the Academy Awards of corporate communications. And I will think after we've done a project that we'll definitely submit that, not because I need the award. I already know I'm good, but I want my team to know they're good. And I want my client to know that what we did together, their baby, is one of the most beautiful babies in the world. And because I have them in mind, not the awards, but the love I have for them is the focus. That's where it needs to be. It makes the art pure. It really does make it pure. Otherwise, it's just another self-serving exercise. And we start getting back to that. Why are we really doing this? To make me look good or to do something in service to others that are going to make them look great?
Now that's very beautifully said, and that's where I'm coming to is you mentioned few times is like what we create is for others, and what we do is also with collaboration and co-creation and cooperation. So we are almost coming to the end. So endly, I wanted to ask like how do we not just create for ourselves, but we create for others, and but also others in mind we create, and because we are also acknowledgement and we are expecting to be acknowledged by others, that means we are creating for others in a way. So how would you, what's your message on the co-collaboration, co-creation, and co-creating, and coming together and creating rather than creating on your own? What's your message to the creatives who are listening, or the audiences who are listening to, in their general life as well? Because we are all creators, whatever we do.
Mhm.
How important is that to co-create?
Well, I'll just say that I don't know of any stories
Mm.
of someone doing profound work that made a profound impact inside a box or a cave or a basement with nobody else. I know of no situation. It's not to say that it doesn't exist or
Mhm.
that inspiration didn't come from that, but I can tell you, and I'll just say from me, I am a product of being surrounded by brilliant creatives.
Sure.
When I started my career in television,
Mm.
I was mentored. Now, I didn't call them mentors. We didn't use buzzwords like mentor or whatever. Like we just call them, this is my coworker.
Mm.
The directors I worked with were my mentors. The
Yeah.
producers I worked with, my mentors. The agencies I worked with, more were my mentors. The engineers that did the lighting, the people that did the sound, the people that ran the cameras, everybody around me every day was teaching me and mentoring me about what it meant to work in the visual arts. And
Mm.
then when I started producing live events, and we brought in, the sound team from the Rolling Stones tour and the laser team from the Pink Floyd tour, whatever like that. Every one of these people, the more, and of course, what was I? I was the least important in the room.
Mm.
I was the least skilled in the room, but I was the
Yeah.
director, I was the producer, and I surrounded myself with people that are far more gifted and far more capable than me. And so what I did in that process, while I like a like an orchestra conductor,
Mhm.
I kind of knew where the music needed to be, and I was able to use the baton, but I was surrounded by people that were masters of their craft that elevated the production, that they brought creative ideas, they brought excellent performance, they brought excellent standards, they pushed each one of us, and we could look into each other's eyes. As my creative director the other day, it was like, we want to hold each other
Sure.
accountable. And I have a saying by my desk out in the general office area that says accountability often feels like an attack
Mm. Mm.
until you realize it's exposing the harm you are doing to others.
Sure. Yeah.
And one of the harms that we can do to others is to not give them our best.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so accountability in a creative environment will not only bring you ideas, will not only bring you fresh insights, will not bring masters of their craft, they'll bring you accountability to raise your standards every day.
Absolutely.
And they have raised my standards, totally raised my standards. And I can't imagine doing a significant creative work
Mm.
without a level of collaboration necessary to execute it or distribute it.
Absolutely. So coming to the end, when it comes to this emotional well-being that we are related to this topic today, what's your final message to keep your emotions, to keep your well-being in that space when we are meeting with different humans with different emotions and different well-being that they are looking for, and you bounce back on each other each time, every time when you create. But that's a very well said, that because that's where you raise your standards up. You know where you are, and you can also uplift others in that process, unknowingly, knowingly. So coming to this emotional well-being, is what's your message to the when it comes to these emotions, and when it particularly when when you don't have someone to rely or depend or co-create or co-collaborate, how important it is for our emotional well-being to have work together?
Well, to start with, and this might be too broad of a statement, but I can only speak from my experience and what I have seen, that
Yeah.
I think creatives feel deeply.
Right.
And part of feeling deeply also involves a level of intense vulnerability. And some of that vulnerability, I think, is natural. It's innate in creatives.
Yeah.
And I also think that some people have really grown in the creative space because of painful situations they've had in their life. And
Absolutely.
all of us, and I'd say all of us,
Mm.
have had painful situations, which means all of us have either experienced tragedy,
Mm.
are experiencing tragedy, or are about to experience tragedy.
Mm.
And we bring that to every human engagement, including the creative process.
Sure.
And that idea again of recognizing that the creativity is not just for me,
Mm.
it's a
Yeah.
gift. It forces us to look into the eyes of others. And when we look deeply in the eyes of others, including our co-creators,
Mm-hmm.
I think it allows us that moment of reflection to feel.
Mm.
And when you can feel and when you can reflect
Yeah.
and when you can have a chance to process and sometimes be, I pray, in a safe space where
Mm.
people can be really honest with each other.
Yes.
It's that place, I believe, where safe, discretionary vulnerability
Mm.
in a creative space is healing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's really what we want, because there are some artists that are basically using their art to vent.
Yeah.
And I get it.
Yeah.
You know, it's more a little psychotherapy session than
Mm.
really a gift. But
Mm.
there are others that have recognized that my art can be an instrument of healing.
Yeah.
Or we recognize we all are in the process of healing every day. It's a process that doesn't stop. Um, from the time we're a child, the echoes of the most important experiences of our life are going to continue to impact us. And the more we're deliberate about recognizing that and saying that I will not be defined by my greatest failure,
Mm.
and it won't be defined by my greatest success, but I
Absolutely.
will define every day on my continued journey to become the best version of myself. I believe that's the best for all humans.
Mm.
And I think it's especially powerful for creatives.
Absolutely. Very well said. So, with that note, Bill, thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. And I think I take end message is like, as you said, very powerful, because it's not about success and failures. It's all about how your emotional well-being, how you maintain resilient, stable, everything, but also how you make that transition with other humans. And that's where our emotional well-being comes in very much into the light, or that moment that we want to uplift or upgrade or update, or even like others in the process we help unknowingly and knowingly. And we are, and as you rightly said, that for creative this is quite powerful. So yeah, I hope all the listeners, you have listened, and you, if you have any questions, Bill is always very much accessible to lots of your queries with regards to creatives that you are all, as we said very rightly, we are all creatives and we all need the cooperation and collaboration. So he's always there for us at any given point of time. So please do write to us your comments and your feedback, and we would appreciate that. But at this point of time, we take your leave for now, and we will bring back. And I think I will like to touch, Bill, on the topic called life, which is going to be very fascinating in terms of your real journey experience and near death to life. But then this is what you have created, what you have been given the opportunity of life, we call that. You have created so many things and so many layers and dimensions, which is amazing. So thanks so much once again, Bill, and we will appreciate your time today. We look forward to meeting you once again.
Thanks so much. It's always great to be with you, my friend.
Absolutely. Bye for now to